Okay, I'm going to get started by welcoming all of you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Nice to see all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today is what we call our Pali Canon and English study group, which I'll explain to you guys what that is a bit later. We start each one of our classes with meditation because this individual who we refer to as the Buddha, he trained his mind to get to a point where it's enlightened. What enlightenment is, where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you no longer experience any discontent feelings. There's no anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of that can be eliminated from your mind. You might think that it's other people who are causing you to experience these feelings, but it's actually what's going on in your own mind that is causing this. And the Buddha figured out the cause of this and how to actually eliminate it through training the mind. Meditation is an important part of that, but there's other things that you need as well besides meditation. You wouldn't be able to just meditate your way to enlightenment. But because meditation is an important component of your practice to be able to train your mind, we start each one of our classes with meditation. So if you'd like to join in the meditation, the way that I start this is I start with some chanting to be able to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. We have the chants on laminated sheets over there on the cabinet. You're welcome to help yourself to get one and chant along if you'd like, because it actually helps you to get more benefit out of the meditation as you ease into the meditation. This isn't a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer, or anything like that. There's none of those kinds of things in the teachings of the Buddha. If you're seeing those kinds of things associated with his teachings, it's actually not his teachings. When he used chanting during his lifetime, it was used as a learning tool, as a learning device. His students would chant his teachings every 2 weeks in order to be able to commit them to memory. So all of his teachings were oral. They didn't have books and audiobooks, videos, podcasts, things like this. We have audiobooks and all kinds of ways to study teachings nowadays, but during his lifetime, they didn't have that. Everything was oral. So they would do chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory. So every 2 weeks, his students would come together and recite his teachings orally. So you can see from the origins of chanting that this isn't a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer. It was used as a learning tool, as a learning device. But since we have books and audiobooks, videos, podcasts, and things like that, we don't chant in order to commit the teachings to memory. We use it as a way to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. Once we're in the meditation, you will see that I'm going to be providing you some guidance where I'm essentially going to be teaching you and instructing you how to meditate while we're actually meditating. Then there's going to be a period of time of quietness where we're all meditating together. Everybody here at the temple and anybody joining online will just all be meditating. Now, during this period of time of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. You might hear a car go by, a dog barking, a bird chirping, someone here might cough or sneeze. This is all normal. If you're in meditation with a craving for permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you will cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated. That's what's actually causing these feelings, is that the mind is craving permanence while you live in an impermanent world. Things are constantly changing around you, but the mind's holding on and craving for things to be permanently one particular way. So you're not going to be able to be in a meditation environment where it's permanently quiet. You're going to hear sounds. And that's the way that the world works, that these sounds will arise, they will change, and then they'll fade away. And if you understand that, you can be in meditation with ease and peacefulness, understanding, well, of course I hear that sound, because that's the way that the world works, is that things are constantly changing. And now you can be at ease and be peaceful. So that period of time of quietness, I'm sure you'll hear occasional sounds. Then we're going to come out of that with some more chanting, and that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand more of the teachings of the Buddha. In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times as part of your journey to enlightenment. There's various courses and retreats where you can learn about these. But oftentimes people are starting in the seated position. So I'll give you guys a little bit of guidance on this just to help you get started. But just understand what I'm sharing with you are just suggestions or recommendations, because there's not just one fixed way to sit. If there was just one way to sit and everybody sat in that same way, that would be permanence. And we don't live in that world. We live in an impermanent world. So different people are going to find different things to be comfortable. So you can use something that I'm sharing with you, or you can figure out something on your own. It really is up to you, because what's important is that the body's comfortable. not painful and not luxurious, but comfortable. So if it's something that I'm sharing with you that helps you to accomplish that, wonderful. If not, if you come up with something on your own, you can use that as well. So you could be sitting on the floor in a chair. Maybe if someone's at home, they're on a bench or a sofa or in a wheelchair, you can sit however you like. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This will kind of help soften your seat a little bit. If you're going to bring your legs together in the cross leg position, you might just decide to do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, this can impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets their hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. So that's an option as well. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable, you could use it. But again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. There's other options here. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you do whatever you feel comfortable. And the same thing for anybody who's in a chair or a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can also sit however you like. Oftentimes when people are sitting in a chair, they will put their feet flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankles. But you can see me sitting in a chair here with my legs crossed. So this is an option too. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. It's helpful if the upper body is erect with the sternum up and the shoulders back. It'll help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. What meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities. So you'd like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched like this, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you're real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be in the middle with the sternum up and the shoulders back, because not only will it keep the mind attentive and alert, but it'll make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to do chanting to ease into the meditation. You guys are welcome to join in, and then I'll come back in with the guidance afterwards. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakewa Bhutang Mahakewanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakewata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakewato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso emakewa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakatoro Kawitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusrang Hoto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here, you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath, not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาพุทธังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมดามังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโพโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, good morning to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone joining online as well. This is called breathing mindfulness meditation. This is a primary form of training in addition to other things that the Buddha used in order to make his way to enlightenment. The goal of this meditation is to train your mind to let go, because the underlying cause, which is producing all these feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others, is that the mind is having craving, desire, attachment. The mind is longing, yearning, it's holding on to things, it's craving permanence. And the mind can only be happy in the unenlightened state when it gets what it wants and what it expects. But then when the mind's not getting what it wants and what it expects, it experiences painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. If you're interested in eliminating these types of thoughts, you're going to need to train your mind to let go. And this meditation is what's doing that for you. So if you had thoughts during your meditation, you're not bad at meditation, you haven't done anything wrong, so to speak. You'll have thoughts during your meditation. The goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts. The goal is to notice your thoughts sooner and sooner and cut it off and let it go easier and easier. Because as long as your mind's holding on, then your mind's going to continue to experience these discontent feelings. So if you think about, like, maybe if you had a boyfriend or girlfriend, maybe when you guys first got together, you were so happy and excited about that. But when you guys broke up, you were maybe sad or angry or frustrated, or maybe you were lonely or bored, or you were missing this person. This is because the mind's holding on and it's craving permanence, wanting this person to be permanent in your life, when in reality, everything around you is constantly changing. It is impermanent. But the mind doesn't understand that. The mind oftentimes thinks it's your love that's causing those painful feelings. If you think love hurts and love is painful, you're not understanding what love is yet. Or if you're falling in love or out of love with people, then you're not understanding what love is. Because once you understand what love love is, you actually can't fall in love and out of love with people, and you won't experience any pain related to love. But if you're having craving, desire, attachment, which every unenlightened mind has, you'll hold on to things very tightly. And then when you're experiencing certain things, you'll have painful feelings and you'll attribute it to your love. So if you had a relationship that broke up, you might have experienced the painful feelings there and thought it was your love. Or if you've had someone close to you that has died and you had painful feelings there, you might have thought that was your love. But that was your mind holding on and craving permanence. So as long as grandma and grandpa are alive, the mind's getting what it wants. But when you experience this impermanence, which is grandma and grandpa dying, then this is where the mind experiences the painful feelings, because it's holding on and it's craving permanence. You can see this more clearly maybe with something that doesn't involve relationships. Like say you bought a brand new car and you were so excited with this brand new car and you drove it to the store and you parked it and you went inside to buy something. And when you came out, there's a scratch on your car. If you get angry or frustrated there, it's not the scratch that's causing that. And it's not the person who scratched your car. That's not what's causing the anger and frustration. It's the mind craving permanence, wanting this car to look permanently beautiful when it's just not possible. Now, we're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because obviously when we walk through a parking lot, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car. But the fact is that this car is going to deteriorate. It's only a matter of time. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. It's going to change. But if your mind's holding on and craving permanence, when this car starts to change, the mind's going to be angry or frustrated. So if you can start to see this in your own life, where your mind is holding on and craving permanence, every single time you've ever been angry, every single time you've ever been frustrated, it's been your mind causing it the whole time. Oftentimes we blame other people for the feelings that we experience. This is why you might push people away in your life. This is what sometimes the mind does when it thinks that the problem is external. You might push away friends or family out of your life, or you might be bitter and harsh and hostile to people, or you might start putting expectations on people and try to pressure them to do things your way. But you can't live harmoniously with people in this way. So if you can start to see this for yourself, that it's your own mind that's causing this, you can actually see every time you've ever been angry your entire life, it's been your mind causing it the whole time. Now, that doesn't mean that the other person wasn't doing something unwise, because they truly could have been doing something unwise, but the mind's craving for everyone to do it this way. So think back to when we were children. We went to mom and dad and asked for chocolate and ice cream. And we were so happy when they gave it to us. We were like bouncing off the wall. Yay, ice cream and chocolate. Right? So each time we asked them for ice cream and chocolate and they gave it to us, we were so happy and excited. But at some point, mom and dad, when you asked them, can you have ice cream and chocolate? They said, no, you can't have ice cream and chocolate. And that's when you're like, I don't like you anymore, right? The mind thinks that it's mom and dad that's causing the anger and frustration, but it's the mind's craving, the longing, the yearning, wanting things to be permanent. So this meditation is training your mind to let go. Let go, let go. So if you're exercising it this way regularly, where you're focused on the breath, and anytime the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and come back. Now, let's just say you're going about life and you're going to the airport to check in, and you think your flight's leaving in about an hour. And when you go to check in, maybe they're like, oh, I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry, ma'am. Your flight's actually delayed. You can't check in yet. It's not leaving for another 3 hours. And you notice the anger starting to come up. It's not the airline company causing that. It's the mind itself. Now you can cut that off, and you can understand that that's just your mind craving permanence. I want every airplane to take off on time, right? That's what the mind wants, right? Everyone else's plane can be late, but your plane, you want it to take off on time, right? That's the craving for permanence, where in reality, we live in an impermanent world. There's going to be maintenance issues. There's going to be crew issues. There's going to be weather issues. If you travel enough, you're going to meet with delays. It's only a matter of time. But if your mind craves permanence, when you're experiencing this impermanence, the mind doesn't like it. So one way to say it is that the mind craves permanence. Another way to say it is that the mind doesn't like impermanence. It doesn't like change. That's why if you look at your life and all the situations where your life was changing, that was the most difficult times for you. When you were changing living locations, when you were changing jobs or occupations, when your relationships were changing, this was very challenging times for you. But you can change your mind. You can transform it. You can get to the point where you don't experience those difficulties and struggles. And this meditation is an important part of that. So I would recommend that you build up a practice where you're regularly training your mind with this meditation, understanding that you will have thoughts during meditation. Even an enlightened being has thoughts. The difference is that in the unenlightened state, you'll have a bombardment of thoughts. It'll be like thought, 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 thought. Or you'll have a thought and you'll look at it, you'll follow it, you'll play with it. You'll be like 2 or 3 minutes down the road and you're like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm meditating. And you'll bring your mind back to the breath. So if those things happen for you, it's completely normal. But you can change that. What you can ultimately get to is each time your mind moves off the breath, you can cut that off and come back. Over time, what you'll get to is to the point where you'll have thoughts during meditation, but you'll notice it right away and you'll cut it off and let it go. And then you'll have quietness and stillness between your thoughts. And this is what an enlightened being experiences. But you shouldn't put the expectation on yourself that you're going to achieve that in 1 month or 6 months or 1 year or something like that. It's going to take you multiple years to build up your practice. Essentially, what you're doing with meditation is you're exercising the mind. That's what you're really doing, is you're making it stronger. Your mind is like a muscle and you're taking it to the gym and you're exercising it so it can be stronger. Another way to think about it is like when we were growing up as children, we were taught to clean this body, and we enjoy cleaning this body. At first, we didn't really like it, right? We were like, oh no, I'm not taking a bath. I want to play, right? Our parents were like, go take a bath, go take a shower. No, I don't want to, right? Like we wanted to just play. But then over time, we saw the benefits of taking a shower, and now we probably can't imagine going an entire day without taking a shower. I mean, it happens from time to time, but it's usually when we're sick or something like this, right? For the most part, we clean this body every day. Well, there's another part to this being who you are, which is the mind. There's the body, the physical body, but there's the mind too. And the combination of these two things we call a person or a human being. If you're only cleaning the body, then you're not cleaning the mind, and that's why you're experiencing stress and anxiety and frustration and agitation and annoyance. You might not have ever learned the wisdom of how to clean your mind because maybe your parents didn't have that wisdom. I know my parents didn't have that wisdom. It wasn't until here in Thailand that I was able to understand how to clean the mind. Well, if you walked around for several days or weeks or months or years without cleaning your body, you'd be pretty uncomfortable. So that's why if someone hasn't been cleaning their mind, you walk around feeling uncomfortable. You experience those discontent feelings. But the Buddha figured out how to do this where you can actually clean up your mind. You can purify the mind. And that's what meditation is helping you to do. But there's other things that you need as well. So we have different programs here to be able to help you to be able to learn the way to be able to clean your mind. And this is what the Buddha taught, is how to purify your mind through training of the mind. So on Sundays and Wednesdays, we have something called the group learning program, which is a great place for people to start out who are just starting out. What we do is we go through this book. It's called Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. Each Sunday I go chapter by chapter. It's a 7-month program. And this week we're actually in chapter 18, which I'm going to be teaching tomorrow. But we restart this program every 7 months, and we go through the entire book in a 7-month period. On Sundays, I teach from the book. We do meditation, and I teach and help people to understand, where I teach in a more traditional format, where I teach for like 15, 20, 30 minutes, open up for questions, teach another 15, 20, 30 minutes, open up for questions, and students are gradually able to understand the foundational teachings to be able to make their way to enlightenment. And then we have other courses and retreats throughout the month and throughout the year that students can attend either here at in Chiang Mai or even online, because we live stream things as well. And if you can't attend live through Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, you can also watch the recordings. But then on Saturdays, what we do is we have what's called our Pali Canon and English study group. What the Pali Canon is it's 45 volumes of books that are this thick. This is the original source teachings of the Buddha when he actually taught. They had documented his teachings, and we refer to that as the Pali Canon. Our community has a book series that we've consolidated the teachings into 13 books. And what we do in the Pali Canon and English study group is we study study volumes 2 through 13. Slowly but surely, over a 1.5-year program, I actually help students to be able to understand the original words of the Buddha. So what we do today is we're actually in this volume 5. We restarted this program several months ago. This is volume 5, which is titled The First Stage of Enlightenment, Stream Enter. This is a book that's guided towards helping students get to this first stage of enlightenment. Your mind is actually enlightened when you're in the 4th stage, but there's multiple stages to be able to get to enlightenment. So the way that we do this program is I invite students here at the temple and anybody who's joining through Zoom to be able to volunteer to read one of the chapters from our book. This is what a chapter would look like. Here, in this case, it's only actually 3 sentences, right? After a student reads this, then I'm going to share some teachings on this to help you understand how it connects to other teachings of the Buddha and how you can integrate this into your life to be able to help you get to enlightenment. And then afterwards, I'll open up to questions. Whether you're here at the temple, you're online, you can ask any questions that you like. So if you're interested in volunteering to read this chapter, or if you have questions, here at the temple, we have microphones. They're in the white bowl there in the middle of the room. We have some up here as well. All you need to do is get a microphone, take it back to your seat, press the gray button. You'll see the lights come on. And if you hold this up to your chin, we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you can keep these with you because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share the microphone with them. And then if you're not using it, if you could turn it off, that'll be helpful so we don't get feedback through the speakers. And then anybody online, if you'd like to volunteer to read, if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any questions or volunteer to read that way. And if you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom and you'd like to ask questions, you can put that in the comment section. So I'll show you guys how this works. Is there anybody who would like to volunteer to read this first chapter? Sure, Pam.
The complete destruction of 3 fetters, chapter 11. With the complete destruction of 3 fetters, he is a 7 times at most attainer who, after roaming and wandering on among heavenly beings and humans 7 times at most, makes an end of discontentedness. With the complete destruction of 3 fetters, he is a family to family attainer who, after roaming and wandering on among wholesome families 2 or 3 times, makes an end of discontentedness. With the complete destruction of 3 fetters, he is a 1 seed attainer who, after being reborn once more in human existence, makes an end of discontentedness.
All right. Thank you, Pam. So what you guys have here in these books, by the way, these books are actually completely free. You can download them from our website. You can take them and go print them yourself if you like. If you like to get printed versions, we have them here at the temple that you just reimburse us for the printing cost, and then we use that to purchase more books, or you can order them on Amazon. What you have here is you have the original words of the Buddha, where the Buddha's teaching. Then you have a reference here. This actually takes you back to the original source teachings in the Pali Canon, so you can see where it came from in the original teachings. And then you've got words from me that are helping you to understand how to integrate this into your life. The Buddha spoke very clear and very concise, very precise. But if you don't understand the totality of his teachings, just seeing a teaching like this can be like, whoa, what is he even talking about? Like some of you guys are like, what is he talking about? A 1 seed attainer, right? Or any of these other things. The complete destruction of the 3 fetters. What does that mean? Well, keep in mind, if you're new to coming here, you're just jumping into volume 5, right? There's volume 1, 2, 3, and 4 for a reason, to be able to help you to be able to build up your understanding. So what I'll do is I'll help you guys to understand what you're learning here, but just understand that most people would start like in a foundational program. If this is the first time you've been here, you'll learn plenty today, but just understand this isn't where someone would normally start. There's usually other programs that people will start in. So what the Buddha is talking about here with the destruction of 3 fetters, there's something called the 10 fetters. These are the 10 10 pollutions in the mind. Sometimes people call them defilements or taints. What a fetter is during the lifetime of the Buddha, if you were someone they were trying to keep confined to a certain area, like a prisoner, they would put a shackle and a chain and a ball around your ankle, and then they would just keep you out in a field. This is a fetter, the shackle, the chain, and the ball. Well, when the Buddha discovers these 10 pollutions that are in the mind, that's keeping the mind in the unenlightened state, he calls them fetters because it's keeping the mind trapped in the unenlightened state. But just like the prisoner, if you release the shackle off the ankle, they're free and they can roam about the world and be completely liberated. The same thing is true about your mind, that when you eliminate these 10 pollutions out of the mind's free. Because when you're experiencing stress and anger and sadness and all these other feelings, your mind's not free. It's bound up, right? And it's like you're really frustrated. It's very painful for you. But when you release these fetters out of the mind, you're free. The mind is completely uplifted. It's bright. It's cheerful. You don't have any of those discontent feelings. It's completely peaceful and joyful. All your relationships will be harmonious, where you'll have blossoming relationships where you don't have the bitterness and harshness and hostility in your relationships any longer. You'll notice that you can't even be in a bad mood, that it's physically impossible to be in a bad mood by the time you get to enlightenment. So these 10 fetters, as you're eliminating the fetters, you're actually moving through the 4 stages of enlightenment. Once you eliminate all 10 fetters, the mind is actually enlightened, where you're in the 4th stage of enlightenment, and that's where you won't experience any discontentedness whatsoever. But on your way to that, you're going to need to go through these various stages. And the first stage of enlightenment is that you've eliminated the first 3 fetters. That's what the Buddha is talking about here, with the complete destruction of 3 fetters. That's the first 3. It's called personal existence view, doubt, wrong behavior, and observances. And you would learn what these are as part of your journey to enlightenment. We can go into that if you like, and we can talk about it, but I'm just going to talk more generally about this unless you guys ask questions and you'd like to know more. So with the complete destruction of these first 3 fetters, what the Buddha is saying is he is a 7 times at most attainer, meaning that if you die in the first stage of enlightenment, you're going to come back into the world at most 7 times before you actually make your way to enlightenment. Now, this cycle of rebirth that the Buddha taught, how beings are being reborn over and over and over again, this is something that oftentimes people don't understand and they haven't necessarily verified. But all the teachings of the Buddha, they're based in you independently verifying what it is that he actually taught. There's no belief in his teachings. So you're not believing a bunch of things and then hoping something good happens when you die. That's not what his teachings are about. It's about learning, growing, and developing in this life, becoming a better and better person in this life through cultivation of wisdom. The way that you cultivate wisdom is you learn, investigate, and examine the teachings of the Buddha. That's what we're doing now. You then reflect on those teachings to be able to independently verify if they're true or false based on your own reflection and your direct experience. Then you start practicing his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life. And now as you're making decisions through those teachings, that's where you see the condition of your mind in your life improving. So that's why when I was just teaching you guys about craving, desire, attachment, and how the mind's longing, yearning, I was giving you different examples so you can see like, oh my gosh, this is true. This is exactly what my mind is doing. Because with belief, you'll just believe something because somebody convinced you to believe it, or you convince yourself to believe it. In belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it. But when you cultivate wisdom, where you've independently verified something and you're actually practicing that particular teaching and you can see how it's working, you'll know the truth and you'll know what's wise and what's unwise. So the Buddha's teachings aren't based in you believing anything whatsoever. He did teach this cycle of rebirth, and you may or may not have the wisdom of how to independently verify whether the cycle of rebirth is true or false. But in our book series, in Volume 11, Chapter 105, I shared 17 different criteria of how to determine whether the cycle of rebirth is true or false. But it's in Volume 11, Chapter 105 for a reason, because that's where people usually approach it much later in their development. It's not something you usually do right up front. So nonetheless, with that said, the Buddha is talking about this 7 times at most attainer, because if somebody dies in the stage of enlightenment, they will come back into the world at most 7 times before they actually make their way to enlightenment. He says, after roaming and wandering among heavenly beings and human beings 7 times at most, even these realms that he taught the hell realm, the animal realm, the afflicted spirits, which are like ghosts, the human realm and the heavenly realm. You can actually independently verify that too. It's maybe not something that you have the wisdom of how to do right now, but that's something that you can acquire over time. And then he says, okay, this person makes an end of discontentedness. So here he's just giving some information, saying, hey, if you eliminate these 3 fetters, then you're going to be reborn at most 7 times, right? And then he says, okay, there's this other type of person who's in the first stage of enlightenment. Not only this, but there's another type of individual too who could potentially be in the first stage of enlightenment. That again, with the 3 fetters being eliminated, that this person is reborn into a certain family. They're not reborn into the heavenly realm necessarily. They are reborn into a particular family. And now within those families being reborn into wholesome families 2 or 3 times, they will make it into discontentedness. And then lastly, this one, he talks about a 1 seed attainer, which is someone who's eliminated the first 3 fetters. They will, in their very next life, be reborn and actually get to enlightenment. So this is just information that he's giving you. He's not giving you anything tangible here to be able to actually go out and practice and eliminate these fetters. That's what he talks about in other teachings. But this is just one teaching out of many that he has. That's why it's in volume 5, chapter 11, I think this is, that he's just giving you information here. So you guys may or may not have questions on this, but if you do, feel free to let me know by just raising your hand here or online. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So are there any questions here or online? No questions? Okay. So I don't see any online either. Okay. So let's go to the next one. Would someone like to read this one? This is chapter 12. This is where we're actually going to see what some of the fetters are. We can talk about them here. You got it, Rachel? Mm-hmm.
Abandoning 6 things, one is capable of realizing accomplishment in view. Monks, without having abandoned 6 things, one is incapable of realizing accomplishment in view. What 6? Personal existence view, doubt, wrong behavior and observance, craving leading to the plane of misery, anger leading to the plane of misery, and ignorance, of unknowing of true reality, leading to the plane of misery. Without having abandoned these 6 things, one is incapable of realizing accomplishment in view. Monks, having abandoned 6 things, one is capable of realizing accomplishment in view. What 6? Personal existence view, doubt, wrong behavior and observance, craving leading to the plane of misery, anger leading to the plane of misery, and ignorance, unknowing of true reality, leading to the plane of misery. Having abandoned these 6 things, one is capable of realizing accomplishment in view.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So these are 6 things that the Buddha is explaining that leads to what's called accomplishment in view. The very first thing that you do on the path to enlightenment is you do something called establishing right view. What establishing right view is to understand the 4 Noble Truths. I gave you guys kind of just a little bit of information of that at the beginning when I was talking about meditation. The 4 Noble Truths is to understand what is the problem that the Buddha discovered in the mind, what is the problem, what is the cause of that problem, what is the elimination of it, and what is the path forward of how to actually fix it. In 4 simple statements, the Buddha gives you a way to independently verify that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that it's craving, desire, attachment, the mind's longing, yearning. But he also gives you the solution of how to fix it in these 4 simple statements. But then all of his teachings go into detail of how to implement the solution. So that's what we call establishing right view, that if you understand the 4 Noble Truths, you've penetrated into it, and you're able to see the truth, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings through craving, desire, attachment, you've established right view. Because what we do in the unenlightened state is we have wrong view, is that we will blame other people for the feelings that we have. You might think that it's your mom and dad, or your brothers and sisters, or your boss, or your coworkers, or your life partner, or your children that are causing the feelings that you experience in your mind. And as long as you have that wrong view, you will never make an end of your discontentedness. You will continue to be angry and frustrated, having stress and anxiety the rest of your life. Because what you'll tend to do is you'll tend to push people away out of your life. You'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile to them, and they'll maybe choose to leave out of your life, or you'll put expectations on people and try to pressure them to do things your way. And as long as you keep doing this, you can't live harmoniously with all people. What the mind's doing is it's craving permanence, and you live in an impermanent world, because there's only one person in the world that makes decisions the same way as you, which is you. That's it. Right? So if you can only be harmonious and live happily with people who make decisions your way, you can only live harmoniously with yourself. And you might actually have trouble doing that from time to time. You might be angry at yourself sometimes, right? So what you would like to be able to get to is where you've established right view, where you've had a breakthrough to the Four Noble Truths, and you can see very clearly that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. It's not about blame. It's not about fault. It's none of that stuff. It's about just seeing true reality of what is actually occurring. Because once you see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, it's actually very empowering, because then you can actually fix it. If it's other people who are causing these feelings that you experience, you could never fix it, because you can't change 8 billion people in the world to do things your way. But when you come to realize that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, it's so empowering, because now you can actually fix it, and you can apply the solution to your own mind. And this is what the Buddha does for you, is helps you to be able to see that. So establishing right view is to be able to see your own mind is causing these feelings, and you need to penetrate into that and be able to see it very clearly. But then there's something called accomplishment in view, which is beyond establishing right view. And this is one aspect of accomplishment in view. There's other things you need besides this to be able to have accomplishment in view. But we'll talk about this one here. In order to get to accomplishment in view, you would need to abandon these first 3 fetters. That's part of it. So these are the 3 fetters that he was talking about previously in the previous discourse. So here I'll explain these to you. What personal existence view is where your mind is clinging to this body and or your mind, thinking that this is who you are as a person. The mind wants to be perceived by others in a certain way. So you will cling to your self-image, and you will cling to your self-identity, wanting others to perceive you a certain way. And you can only feel comfortable if people are perceiving you in that way. So for example, if you've ever been in a social situation and you spilt something on your clothing and you were embarrassed by that, that's your personal existence view. That you could only be happy if you're being perceived a certain way. Like if you have clean clothes, you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. But when you have spaghetti sauce or chocolate ice cream all over your clothing, maybe in your mind you think you look like a slob, and now when other people are potentially perceiving you that way, you're uncomfortable with that. That's the mind's personal existence view. Or maybe you looked in the mirror and you saw a pimple or a wrinkle or a mole or a gray hair, or you started losing your hair. This is your personal existence view. If you were shaken up by that when you saw that, that's your personal existence view. Or maybe you stood in front of your closet and you thought, who am I going to see today? And how do I want to look? And you put on a certain set of clothes and you looked in the mirror and you're like, no, I can't go outside looking like that. And then you put on another set of clothes and you're like, no, I can't go outside like that. And you put on another set and you're like, all right, now I feel comfortable to go outside. This is your personal existence view. Maybe you were like me when I was a kid, when I was young, maybe 12 or 13 years old. I used to take gel and mousse and I put it in my hair and I tried to get every little hair in exactly the right spot, and I couldn't go outside until I had every hair in the right spot. And sometimes I did this for so long I would miss the school bus on the way to school. This was my personal existence view. I only felt comfortable going outside if every little hair was in the right spot. So you might have experienced some of these types of things. This is the mind clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. But then there's an identity that your mind could be holding on to based on your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation, any number of things of who you think you are as a person. Whereas if your mind's clinging to any of this, you can only feel comfortable when people are perceiving you the way you want to be perceived. So maybe you were in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend, and you thought, I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, or I am a husband, I am a wife. And now you felt somewhat comfortable while you were in that relationship. But when you guys broke up and you were single, your mind might not identified with I am single. So now you might have felt like you wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship because that uncomfortableness felt so uncomfortable for you. The mind felt the way to solve it is to kind of reassume this identity. Or maybe you have an identity in your mind like, I am American, or I am Spanish, or I am German, or I am Chinese, or I am Canadian, or I am Thai. Any of this I am around your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality. And now when you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, they say all Americans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle. And you're like, wow, they're talking about me. And you get so happy and excited about that. But then it's only a matter of time before 2 tables over, they say something degrading and disparaging about the nationality that you're holding on to in your mind. And now when you hear that, you're angry and you're frustrated. So as long as you have this personal existence view in your mind, you can't be permanently peaceful because it's only a matter of time before somebody experiences hearing something that you see to be disagreeable, and now you'll feel frustrated or angry or irritated. So the Buddha gives you teachings of how to eliminate this out of the mind, and that's part of what's going to help you to get to the peace and the joy where you can experience the calmness and steadiness in your mind at all times, because your mind will get shaken up when you hear someone say, all Americans are blah, 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 blah. You're like, whoa, I'm ready to fight. They're talking about me, right? So you need to be able to eliminate this where you understand that this body is not you, and any of this identity that your mind is holding on to, that's not you. It doesn't define who you are as a person. Sometimes people even do this with their choices and decisions. Maybe you've used drugs and alcohol in the past, and you've been taught that I am an alcoholic or I am an addict. Well, that's not true. Right? That's just the identity that the mind's holding on to. You used to make choices and decisions to use drugs and alcohol in the past, but that doesn't make you an alcoholic. That's the mind adopting a certain identity just because of the choices and decisions that the person made in the past. So this can all be eliminated. What doubt is where an individual will have doubt about the Buddha, the teachings, the community that you're part of, your teacher, or your own ability to be able to get to enlightenment. It's normal for people to have doubt when they come to the path to enlightenment, because how can you have confidence in something if you don't even know what it is? If you haven't even learned the teachings of the Buddha, how could you have confidence in his teachings? Or how could you have confidence in a community that you're not even familiar with, or a certain teacher, or your own ability to get to enlightenment because you've never done it before? So the way you eliminate your doubt, because this will actually erode the mind and make it difficult for you to make progress, is you investigate and examine the teachings. And as you investigate and examine the teachings, you see through your reflection that they're true. And then when you're practicing the teachings and you see your mind improving and you see the condition of your life improving, you'll know that these teachings work and they're 100% truthful. So you don't eliminate your doubt through blind belief or faith or anything like that. Instead, you investigate and examine teachings, you reflect on them, and then you practice them to be able to see whether or not they're working for you. Because you know situations where you're angry and frustrated and irritated or annoyed, and when you're experiencing those same exact situations and your mind's not angry or annoyed or frustrated, you'll know it's these teachings that are actually helping you to be able to accomplish that. So slowly but surely, you'll actually eliminate this doubt where you'll have confidence in the Buddha, confidence in his teachings, confidence in the community that you're part of, confidence in the teacher who's guided you to that point, and then in confidence in your own ability to get to enlightenment because you see your mind's actually doing it. You're actually moving forward towards it. Then there's something called wrong behavior and observances. In the unenlightened state, there's a certain amount of wrong behavior. What we mean by that is there's a certain amount of moral conduct that you're involved in that is unwise. And as long as you keep putting out that unwise moral conduct, it's causing difficulties in your relationships, and it's all going to come back to you. When your mind firmly believes that other people are causing you to be angry and frustrated, when you're bitter and harsh and hostile, you'll feel justified in your conduct. You'll think that person deserved that, right? When you talk angry and bitter and harsh to people. But when you come to realize that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, you realize that it's really unwise to go around the world and be bitter and harsh and hostile to people. It's just damaging your relationships. And whenever you put that out, that's what's coming back to you. So the Buddha teaches you wise moral conduct about how to interact with people through your intentions, your speech, your actions, and even your livelihood of how you choose to sustain your life, so that you can do this in a way that doesn't cause harm. Because any time that you cause harm to others, harm is going to come back to you. Now, you've heard me share that you cause your own discontentedness, yet you cause your own anger and frustration, but so do other people too. So you're not causing your mom and dad to be angry, or your brothers and sisters, even though they might say, you are making me angry. You're not making them angry. That's just their lack of wisdom, that they think that you're making them angry. So you can't cause someone else to be discontent, but you can cause them harm. If you cause someone harm through your intentions, your speech, your actions, your livelihood, this harm is going to come back to you. The way that you would cause harm is if you cause harm to someone's physical body, to their material possessions, or their reputation, then this harm is going to come back to you. So what the Buddha teaches you to do is to not cause harm, so that way you don't experience harm coming back to you. Because how can you get to a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life if you've got this harm that keeps coming back to you? So he teaches you a certain amount of moral conduct that you can improve the way that you interact with people. For example, where you're speaking gentle and warm and loving to people, rather than being bitter and harsh and hostile, right? He's teaching you to not slander and gossip, where you're damaging people's reputation. Because if you cause harm to someone's reputation, they're going to want to cause you harm. At the height of this, if you go around gossiping and slandering about people, you can get murdered. This is why you might see investigative reporters who go on the news and they speak and they talk about some person, and the next thing you know, they're dead. The Buddha's teachings aren't explaining to you the way the world should be. He's explaining to you the way the world is. And the way the world is that if you cause harm, harm is going to come back to you. So by understanding these natural laws that he taught, you can actually navigate the world more peacefully. So one of the things that an individual is doing on the path to enlightenment is they're working on improving their moral conduct. And by eliminating this behavior that is unwise, you'll see improved results in the way that people interact with you, because you're interacting with them in a more wise way, and you'll see people interact with you in a more wise way. Oftentimes we think that when we have difficulties in our relationships, the way to solve that is to change the other person. That's usually what the mind wants to do. You might have been trying to change mom and dad, brothers and sisters, your life partner, people like this. I know I did as I was growing up. I was trying to change a lot of people around me. It doesn't work. The way that you're going to get to peace and joy is by changing your own mind. And the way your relationships are going to get to be the point where they're harmonious is you've got to change the way you interact in your relationships. As long as you're being bitter and harsh and hostile and you're causing harm in your moral conduct in your relationships will struggle and you'll have difficulties. But when you practice what the Buddha taught, you'll be able to see that it improves the way that you experience life, because now you're functioning in a more wise way. So someone who's eliminated wrong behavior will be practicing a certain amount of moral conduct that is wise, and you'll be able to see that it actually works to improve the way you experience life, and your mind will be so much more peaceful and your relationships will be more harmonious. Then there's this other part, it's called wrong observances, where oftentimes in the unenlightened state, people think the way to get to a better life is to do rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and things like this. You might have actually done these things, or you've been exposed to these kinds of things. Well, if you understand the underlying problem that the Buddha discovered in the mind, which is a lack of wisdom, then you understand that there's no amount of rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship that is actually going to help you in your day-to-day life. So there's no amount of water that I can sprinkle on you that's going to make your life better. There's no amount of strings that I can tie on your wrist that is going to make your life better. The thing that's causing the difficulties and struggles in the mind is its lack of wisdom, its confusion, its misunderstanding about the natural laws and how the world truly works. So when you cultivate wisdom, you're making wiser and wiser decisions, and you'll experience more and more improved results in your day-to-day life. And there's no amount of rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or prayer that's going to allow you to cultivate wisdom. So all these things that you see, even if you're in a Buddhist temple and someone's wearing an orange robe and shaving their hair, if they're doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer, that's not from the Buddha. He never taught any of those kinds of things. Those are gross misunderstandings of his teachings, because he's teaching you to cultivate wisdom through learning, examining, and investigating his teachings, through reflecting on them to verify if they're true or false, and then practicing his teachings through training your mind. So if somebody thinks that they can do rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and things like this, and their life's going to become better, they're having what the Buddha calls as wrong observances, that in their mind, they don't understand the number one problem, which is the need to cultivate wisdom and eliminate this lack of wisdom. So whether someone chooses to do these things or not, that's a choice for them to make. The Buddha's not giving you rules and commandments. He's not telling you what you should or shouldn't do in your life. You're an adult. You can make choices for yourself, but you need to have the wisdom of understanding what's wise and unwise, so that way you can actually make wise decisions. So the Buddha doesn't give you rules or commandments. Instead, he helps you to be able to see what's true about this natural law, and then you can navigate the world more peacefully. Because maybe you're going to like a family event. Maybe the family is going to the church or the synagogue or the mosque or the temple, and maybe they're going to do rites and rituals and ceremonies and all these kinds of things, but you're just hanging out with the family and you guys are going out to dinner or something like that. And maybe you go along with everybody to the mosque or the synagogue or the church or whatever it is. And now all these rituals and ceremonies are going on. As long as your mind understands that these things don't lead to wisdom and they don't lead to improvement in your day-to-day life, then you've eliminated wrong observances. And oftentimes people have already eliminated that before they ever come to study with me, because they know that I don't do these things. And that's one of the reasons why people like to come study here, because I'm not doing all these rituals and ceremonies and superstitious and mystical and magical things. None of those things are true. It doesn't actually work. If you're going to get to a better life, you're going to need to cultivate wisdom. There's no amount of water that I can sprinkle on you that's going to improve your relationships. There's no amount of strings that I can tie on your wrist that's going to improve your career or your professional life. But by providing you wisdom of how to train your mind and how to make wiser decisions, that's what's going to improve your life. So that's what the Buddha did. And that's what I do, is I share the wisdom of how to train your mind. And that's what's ultimately going to lead to improvement in your life. So these are the first three fetters that a person who's in the first stage of enlightenment would have eliminated. And there's other things as well that a person in the first stage of enlightenment would have done and accomplished, but these are three of them. And then the Buddha talks about elimination of craving, anger, and ignorance, leading to the plane of misery, that someone will have eliminated this to have accomplishment in view. What craving, anger, and ignorance is, this is a high-level way of referring to all the 10 fetters. There are certain fetters that are in the mind. The 10 fetters are the deepest level of detail, but when the Buddha talks about them in more general sense, he refers to them as craving, anger, and ignorance. What craving is what I was talking about before, where the mind's longing, yearning, and it's chasing after the objects of its affection, and you can only be happy if you get what you want. The anger is the bitterness, the harshness, the hostility. This comes through in your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And what the ignorance is the unknowing of true reality, or the lack of wisdom, the confusion that the mind has. So that confusion or lack of wisdom that the mind has is the whole reason why it has craving and anger. The only reason why your mind continues to crave and continues to have anger is because it lacks wisdom to understand the teachings to be able to train your mind and eliminate your craving and anger. If you cultivate the wisdom of how to eliminate your craving and anger, you won't experience this anger and hostility anymore in your mind. But because of the lack of wisdom, the mind continues to crave and it continues to have anger. So while we call it craving, anger, and ignorance, it's really because of ignorance, or this unknowing of true reality, that the mind continues to crave and it continues to have anger. Now, this word ignorance is being used here because that's what a lot of people translate the words of the Buddha to. I use it because other people use it, but I prefer this other phrase. That's why I've inserted it here, which is the unknowing of true reality. Because the word ignorance is like a derogatory word. It's a degrading word. It's a diminishing word. And a fully, perfectly enlightened Buddha wouldn't refer to people as ignorant or stupid or foolish or things like this. An enlightened being is going to talk about things in a positive way. So even though I'm using this word ignorance, understand that it's better thought of as the unknowing of true reality, that the unenlightened mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. So for example, prior to maybe hearing me talk, you've probably never heard anybody told you that your own mind is causing these feelings that you're having. You might firmly believe that it's other people that are causing these feelings that you experience. And you might have been believing that your entire life. But remember, with belief, you don't know what's true or false. What you need to be able to do is get to wisdom where you see the truth for yourself, that it's physically impossible for anybody to insert a feeling into your mind. If there's a feeling that's in your mind, it's coming from within the mind, that it's physically impossible for someone to insert a feeling into your mind. But you have to be able to see that for yourself. So this unknowing of true reality is that the mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. So that's why the real goal on the path to enlightenment is to cultivate wisdom, not to believe anything whatsoever. So there's a certain amount of craving, anger, and ignorance that keeps your mind continuing to be in this kind of animalistic state. That in the unenlightened state, an unenlightened being functions almost like an animal. We are not animals. We are human beings. We can evolve to a better and better human being. That's what the path to enlightenment is. But in the unenlightened state, we function pretty much like an animal. Like if you've ever been in a knockdown, drag out argument with like your life partner or something, where you guys are both yelling and hollering and screaming at each other, you probably notice that you look like an animal, right? You're like fighting to death. Right? And you might even picked up things and thrown them across the room and all kinds of stuff, right? It looks very miserable, right? And we've all probably done that at one point or another. That's what the Buddha is talking about here, about craving and anger and ignorance leading to the plane of misery. The plane of misery is the lower realms, hell, the animal realm, and the realm of afflicted spirits. And what the Buddha is saying is by the time you get to this accomplishment in view, you don't have that deep level of craving, anger, and ignorance where you're like functioning almost like an animal, that you've evolved to a better human being. You haven't yet got to enlightenment yet by the time that you have accomplishment in view, but you've at least eliminated a certain portion of your craving, anger, and ignorance, starting to function as a better and better human being, shedding these animalistic instincts that we tend to have in the unenlightened state. So this is this particular chapter, helping you to understand what accomplishment in view is, at least this portion of it. There's other discourses that help you to understand other parts of accomplishment in view. Do you guys have any questions on this chapter here? Anything you'd like to ask? Whether it's about the chapter, anything I've shared, anything we've been talking about? No questions? Okay. Let me see if we have anything online. Okay, I don't see anything online either. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to end class here by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to understand the teachings of the Buddha. In this particular class, I usually just go up to a certain time frame and then I end class, where in the evenings on Saturday, I teach from home and I teach online, and we actually cover 10 chapters. And those students typically have been studying with me for a really long period of time, and they have a lot more understanding. So we are able to cover 10 chapters and really dive into the detail of those particular chapters. But if you're interested in getting started on the path to enlightenment, I would recommend you attend like Sundays and Wednesdays, or take some of the courses and retreats that I share, because that'll kind of help you build up a foundation. Even starting with this first book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment, this is really the best place to get started. And like I said, you can get it on our website for free. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon. This is the best place to get started. This chapter here and the other chapters, we're in volume 5 here, so it's oftentimes beyond what someone who's just getting started is really interested to get started with. But if you start with this first book, it'll help really gradually build you up. So whatever you choose to do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Perhaps we'll see you next time. Sawadee Kap. Sawadee-khap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.